The qualities of the flour define those of the dough itself. The amount of proteins influences the water absorption. The kind of proteins determine the quality of the gluten. The enzymatic activity influences the speed of the rising and fermentation, etc. But let us proceed in an orderly manner and go at the very start of the process, focusing on wheat flour, because I think it's fair to say that's the one we use the most in pizza making. Wheat, like all cereals, comes in kernels. Each kernel has 3 parts. The external layer is the bran, full of fibers, some proteins, minerals, etc. Going inwards, we have the endosperm, which is around 80% of the single grain. Finally, at the core, we have the germ. It is the embryo of the wheat plant and it's packed with nutrients, at least in proportions. There are proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals. Germ is around 2.5% of the single seed. If we grind the whole wheat kernels, including bran and germ, then that's wholemeal flour. That's a general concept. Maybe different countries may have laws or rules that determine different details about it. When this flour undergoes various stages of filtering, we get white flour, which basically comes only from the endosperm, the little treasure chest full of the ever important elements for us bakers. I'm talking about carbohydrates and proteins. They are important because they determine how much water our flour will absorb. This means they heavily influence the hydration of the dough we can afford with that particular flour. Let's break things down. Most of those carbohydrates are starch, around 75% of the total. Some starch granules are damaged during milling, but that's not a bad thing at all. In fact, while undamaged starch absorbs water up to half their weight, damaged starch can absorb up to 2 times their weight. Overall, about 46% of the total water in the dough is absorbed by starch. It's important to mention another category of carbohydrates called pentosanths. They are just 2 or 3% of the total, but they absorb up to 10 times their weight in water. So they play an important role. In fact, they are associated with the absorption of around 23% of the total water. Now, there's no way to know how much of these carbohydrates there are in the flour unless we ask the mill. But that's not really a problem because we can focus on the other element that determines the water absorption, that is protein content. Even though flour contains way less proteins than starch, consider that they absorb water up to 2 times their weight, so a small change can go a long way, considering that they account for the absorption of around 31% of the total water. As a rule of thumb, the higher the protein content, the higher the water absorption. So we just have to check the nutritional table on the package of the flour to have a good clue. However, we must always be aware that there are also carbohydrates, so there is actually the chance that 2 flours with the same amount of proteins do not absorb the same amount of water. The important tidbit to consider is that proteins contained in the bran absorbs little to no water. So don't be tricked if you see a wholemeal flour with a very high protein content, because that's not enough. It's also true that wholemeal flour contains fibers and they actually absorb water. This is another element to factor in. On a professional level, water absorption is calculated using a farinograph, a machinery that prepares a small batch of dough with specific proportion and measures the resistance that the dough opposes to the hook of the mixer when it's spun. Another interesting machine is the Foley number. It determines an index called Foley number that tells how active are the enzymes in the flour, so how quickly the complex structures in the dough will be broken down. Low Foley number equals high activity, which means short rising time is suggested. High Foley number equals low activity, which means we can afford a long fermentation. The last machine I want to mention, definitely not least, is called alveograph, and it is used to determine the strength of the flour, quantified by an index called W. Now, it's common knowledge that the protein content is a good indicator for strength. Even for many bread flours from the supermarket, you will see mentioned strong somewhere on the package, and we know that bread flours, by definition, contain a good amount of proteins. However, the alveograph allows us greater accuracy. Basically, it makes a small batch of dough with certain standards. then blows air inside it, so it inflates like a bubble until it pops. The machine draws a chart called alveogram that gives us a lot of information. Please note that alveograph is only used in some countries like Italy, for example. So at this point, it's pretty clear how important protein content is. It's a protagonist in our life as bakers. To conclude with this topic, we only have one last concept left. It's gluten. The proteins we talk about so far produce gluten, and we all know that gluten is essential in any dough because it holds the gas that allows the rise during fermentation. It's important to understand that in the flour you will not find gluten as it is. Gluten is a complex protein built when two families of proteins bond together. I'm talking about glutenins and gliadins. Glutenins give elasticity, that is the ability of a stretched object, dough in our case, to get back to the original dimension. Therefore, it's somehow expressed by the p-value of an alveogram. Gliadins instead are responsible for the extensibility, that is the opposite of elasticity. Our dough will stretch and stay there without snapping back. Somehow it's expressed by the L value of an alveogram. The different proportion of glutenins and gliadins determine the quality of the gluten they can build and consequently the characteristics of the dough, including the P on L that comes from an alveogram. P on L, W index, as I said, they are not used everywhere, but they are definitely standard in Italy, where we are also dealing every day with 0,0 flour. Many people obsess with 0,0 and swear that that's the only flour we should use to make pizza because it's finely milled and it works, I don't know, miracle. I will cut the long story short, it's not true at all. I will never stress enough that 0,0 is not finely milled. It does not have a higher protein content compared to other flours. It does not make better pizza. 0,0 is one of the names we Italians give to flour, a category. We have 4 more names and the whole range goes like this: 00, 0, 1, 2, and integrale, which means wholemeal. They are in order of refinement, where 00 and integrale are the extremes. 00 is the most filtered and it contains just the endosperm, while on the opposite, integrale, wholemeal, is not filtered at all and it also contains wheat germ and bran. This classification comes from a law that doesn't mention the milling or the purpose. What really defines the classification is the ash content that's increasingly higher when you go from 00 to integrale. The very same law also defines what is semola. You probably know it as semolina. It's a quite coarse product of the grinding and filtering of hard wheat, whereas so far we discussed flour that comes from soft wheat. Hard wheat usually contains a higher amount of proteins, and being hard requires more effort to be reduced to flour. This leads to more damaged starch. Therefore, semolina, and in general flour made from hard wheat, absorbs more water than flour that comes from soft wheat. Well, okay, it looks like flour is quite a little world of its own, with all these teeny tiny things inside it and the influence they have. So at this point, the question should arise: what is the best flour to make pizza? Or more geekly, something like, how do I choose the flour for the pizza I want to make? This part is in the complete version of this video. Join my channel now so you can watch it.